Ladies and gentlemen, this next song comes from Tanzania. It's a song in Swahili, a love song. It simply says, Malaika nakupenda malaika, which simply means, I love you, my angel. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Ningekuoa madiwe, ningekuoa dada. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Pesa zasumbua roho yangu, pesa zasumbua roho yangu, nami nifanyeje kijana mwenzio? Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Kidege kukuwaza, kidege kidege kukuwaza, kidege nami nifanyeje kijana mwenzio? Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Nami nifanyeje kijana mwenzio? Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the technical team. We are now ready to get going. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all our participants, our distinguished panelists and executive guests to this seminar today. My name is Maurice Bolo, talking to you from the Sinovan Center in Nairobi. As you have seen in the introductions, I'm going to be a moderator for this webinar number 8 on the topic of entrepreneurship in a pandemic situation, taking opportunities and realigning for the future. Our distinguished participants in many parts of Africa and beyond, our panelists, our guests, please feel warmly welcome to this session and on this webinar today. Allow me to thank very much RU Forum for having put this together on this very special topic, focusing on issues of entrepreneurship and innovation amongst the youth. Allow me also to thank very much our panelists that have joined the seminar already. They have been introduced in that PowerPoint that has just been, that we have just finished. But if need be, we are going to introduce them again or ask them to say a few more words about themselves as they begin to speak. As we start, allow me to run you very quickly through today's agenda, just to set the scene. We are going to have a short introductory session, just to hear a few remarks from our hosts, and then we will move straight into the panel discussion, at which point I'm going to introduce you in turns, each speaker as their time allows. After that, then we are going to have a discussant to respond to some of the issues that will be raised by our panelists. And then we shall follow that with a question and answer session before we wrap up. We anticipate that this will take us a 2-hour session beginning now until about 4 p.m. As we start, kindly allow me to run you through some basic housekeeping rules just to make sure that we can run smoothly. On how to participate, we have a lot of participants in various parts of the continent, and RU Forum has organized for translation services, and we are going to be operating on English, French, and Arabic simultaneously. As such, you are free to choose which language you want to listen to, and that can be done through the screens that we have. The second point is that we are going to expect a lot of engagement from our participants to engage with the panelists as the discussions are going on, as they make their presentations. So we have two main ways of participating. Yes, okay, I would request you to mute your microphone just so that we can follow what I'm trying to say. There is a question and answer board on your screen. Please, we shall use that section to ask questions that need responses from the panelists or from other participants as well. So reserve that section for questions and answers only. The second guidance I want to give is that there's also a chat option, and we are going to use the chat option to make comments and suggestions and contributions to the debate. Please don't put questions in there because they will not be checked regularly. If you have questions, use the question and answer section. If you want to contribute to the discussion or make a comment, kindly use the chat options. As you make your contributions, we request our participants kindly introduce yourself briefly on that board. Just say your name, your country, and your institution. And then as you make your comment or ask your question, please direct it to one of the panelists, or if it is a cross-cutting question, you could say it applies to all, and then one of them is going to respond. And we are going to follow up to make sure that all the questions are at least responded to. It will help if your questions are direct and specific so that we are following up with you in case we need any further clarifications. In terms of housekeeping, I think those are the basic issues at the moment. As we begin, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call on the Deputy Executive Secretary of the RU Forum, Dr. Florence Nakaiwa, to welcome us officially and make a few remarks as we begin. Dr. Florence Nakaiwa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, moderator, Dr. Maurice Bolo, Chief Executive Officer for Sinovate Kenya, who is moderating this, our 8th webinar in a series of webinars that we are hosting. To our distinguished panelists and participants who have joined this webinar focusing on entrepreneurship in a pandemic situation, taking opportunities and realigning for the future, you are most welcome. This is the 8th in a series of webinars hosted by RU Forum, a network of 128 universities in 38 countries in Africa. As a network of universities, RU Forum is passionate about the youth. We acknowledge that these define the network itself. Thus, for us, dialogue on entrepreneurship and opportunities for the future is a key thrust and core to our primary stakeholders and partners alike. The primary aim of RU Forum webinar series is to bring perspectives on the table and galvanize actors into action. You will agree with me that even before COVID-19 pandemic, Africa as the most youthful continent was considered quite entrepreneurial. However, we also know that on account of the death rate of new enterprises, at least this is true for Uganda, they need a lot of ingenuity and support to stay afloat. This has become more pertinent amidst the COVID pandemic, but we also recognize that plenty of opportunities have been created by the pandemic. We have to harness these. We should not waste this opportunity. It is crucial that we do not waste this opportunity for entrepreneurship that has been presented to us by COVID-19. We at RU Forum believe that the challenges on the continent do have an Afro-centric solutions. How do we tap into the youth talent on the continent to improve livelihoods? How do we build capacity and resilience of African institutions to deal with the effects of COVID and cope with future pandemics? Today, these are some of the questions that we want to respond to. We have a panel of experts from across the globe to give us insights on how we can align to our inner and latent capacities to the external environment to create enterprises that solve existing challenges, but most importantly, enhance our livelihoods. It is my sincere hope that you will leave the webinar with ideas on how to address entrepreneurship issues. Please join the debate and join me to welcome our panelists for the day. Thank you, our panelists, for agreeing to share your knowledge and wisdom with the participants. To all of you participants, we at RU Forum thank you for honoring our invitation to participate in this webinar. Our moderator, Dr. Bolo, asante sana. We greatly appreciate your participation. We do look forward to hosting all of you again. Please remember that the recordings of all webinars from number 1 up to this 8th one are available on the RU Forum website and are being recorded. I thank you all. Please enjoy the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Nakaiwa, for welcoming us and for your opening remarks. Highly appreciated, and I hope the audience is going to engage very lively as you have asked them to. And we're going to see a lot of participation from our panelists and participants alike. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the topic today is on entrepreneurship in a pandemic situation, taking opportunities and realigning for the future. As we all know, the soaring unemployment rate amongst the youth remains a concern for our governments, for our policymakers, for our practitioners, for our private sector, and for all those are concerned with Africa's development. If you take a look at our development blueprints, a lot of attention is now being given to the role of the youth. And that makes the 8th RU Forum webinar highly relevant and very timely in my view. However, we also notice that in many cases, governments have challenges of generating high quality jobs at a rate and a consistency that matches the growing numbers of the unemployed youth in the continent. The universities and the tertiary colleges are churning out graduates at a much faster rate than the economies can actually absorb. In response, therefore, it has become imperative that the youth are prepared through our training programs and that they are facilitated through a mix of policy measures to champion the process of self-employment and wealth creation. This necessitates that the focus on approaches that enhance the potential for innovation, entrepreneurship, and wealth creation amongst the youth become highly imperative. In our continent today, the high population of the youth presents a demographic dividend if we use it well. But we also know that this could turn into a ticking time bomb if we don't take the necessary steps to harness that potential. If well supported, the highly educated youth who are facilitated and nurtured can be a source of the elusive economic growth and renewal that we seek for our continent. However, ladies and gentlemen, at the same time, we know that a highly educated and idle youth population is amenable to crime and manipulation and could easily threaten the continent's peace and stability. It is therefore evident that the innate potential for innovation and entrepreneurship that exists amongst the youth must be nurtured and facilitated. Now, this potential has been demonstrated through inventions in areas such as ICT, finance, energy, environment, just to mention but a few. However, I also note that the mere existence of this innate potential is not enough, and that even though this exists, it must be nurtured, it must be facilitated, it must be supported. I am glad that the 8th Forum webinar focuses on these issues and raises a number of important issues for our discussions today. One is about the issues of mentorships and skills development. And as we know, business mentorship training and associated skills development are key to enhancing innovation and entrepreneurship amongst the youth. The questions that confront us today are what sort of skills are required in a pandemic situation as presented by the COVID-19 pandemic? How do we build stronger innovation response capacities to deal with similar situations in the future? What has been the experiences in the different parts of the continent, and how are businesses of the youth adapting to those kind of situations? The second set of issues have to do with government policies and the role of government in stakeholder coordination. And here, an important thing is the coherence of the policies of the same government on issues that relate us to training, issues that relate us to labor mobility, issues that relate to industrialization. It is quite complex, and often organizational and cultural differences between the various stakeholders, their mandates and ways of operations are often in conflict in the same government. The questions that confront us today is the fact that innovation and entrepreneurship rely on policies that transcend different sectors of the same government. Have we seen the adjustments as being coherent, or are they discordant in the way they are being presented? The final thing I want to raise is the issues about improving the business environment that will allow the startups and the small businesses by our young people to survive and to thrive. What kind of adjustments are our governments making to make the ease of doing business in our countries a lot better? Finally, ladies and gentlemen, those issues raise a number of questions that are going to underpin our discussions today. And there are a lot more than the 4 that I'm going to read through, but our panelists will expound on them. One of the questions is, to what extent do our national policies and programs support mentorship schemes between our youth and the private sector practitioners, for example? The second set of questions is, to what extent do the curriculum of our training institutions incorporate and give due emphasis to the soft innovation enabling skill sets that are required for our innovation and entrepreneurship amongst the youth to survive? The third set of issues that will come up in the discussions are about, do we have national or institutional policies that are designed specifically to support the youth in the establishment of new businesses and incentives that make them survive and thrive? And my final set of questions or issues to raise would be, what is the role of other actors, including government, private sector, donor agencies, and other civil society organizations in supporting innovation and entrepreneurship amongst the youth? Our dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, we have a team of experienced and distinguished panelists that will help us unpack these and many more issues that are pertinent to today's webinar on the topic, as I have mentioned, entrepreneurship in a pandemic situation, taking opportunities and realigning for the future. First of our panelists to take us through this, we have Mr. Charles Okiki from Uganda, and Enterprise Uganda, who is the Executive Director. And it is now my honor and pleasure to introduce and invite Charles to make his presentation to this distinguished audience. Charles, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, moderator, Dr. Bolo. Thank you so much, the Deputy Executive Director of Forum, Florence. And thank you to the panelists, the discussants, and to all the people who are listening to this webinar number 8 under the auspices of Forum. I want to start by saying that it's such a great opportunity for me to be part of this discussion. And as somebody who has been involved in running entrepreneurship programs in Uganda, I feel greatly honored to be part of this webinar. Dr. Molo has set the scene and has posed a few questions. He's saying, are the policies supporting entrepreneurship in our continent? Is the curriculum that we are giving to our students, our young people, in line with what happens in the business arena? Are the initiatives that we are putting as nations of Africa for the benefit of young people to go into business aligned with the reality of getting them in the game and keeping them in the game? And then you're also putting the last question and saying, the donors that come to our country, as they come and support us and do whatever they are doing, are they doing this in a manner that will allow businesses to take off using the leadership of young people? My submission today is to give the background to what it takes to be in business in the first place, what it takes to remain in business, and then how you can look at those two to actually refine your presence in the private sector under the situation that has been occasioned by COVID-19. And I'm going to do that using a few slides that I have here. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I hope you are seeing. Are they on? They are not on. Yeah, I want to start from it is on now. All right. I want to share my next few minutes with you on what we've done in Uganda. As Enterprise Uganda, the organization where I'm the executive director, We have put some 120,000 people into business, and some of them today are earning 400,000 equivalent of US dollars per annum, located up country and doing quite well. And these are people still in their 30s, in their 20s, and they are generating such income. And we are now showcasing them in national televisions like the NTV, Uganda. NTV is a big media house in East Africa. So we are showcasing some of the stories in our own country. And what I'm going to share today is just a reflection of that experience. I want to start by saying that private sector, the way we know it, is massless. It doesn't recognize anybody's age, anybody's education, anybody's background, anybody's gender or race. It is simply saying two things for you to get into the game and remain in the game. The first one is, if you want to enter the arena of private sector, don't come and tell me about how you lost your father, how you lost your mom, how you're disadvantaged as a young person or whoever you are. The first thing the private sector is asking is, do you deliver a solution that meets my expectations? I have minimum expectations for my money. I'm coming to have a lunch. I want a lunch that reflects my ability to pay you. I have this $1 that I want to use for a simple meal, and I want the best for it. And I'm not going to come into your restaurant while asking whether you have children to feed at home, whether you're a young person, whether people disadvantaged you in the beginning. Are you meeting my expectations? A buyer is selfish. Once you're able to meet that expectation, people begin now to say, oh, go to that restaurant. The young man there is very good. The young man comes later. The first requirement is I'm coming with my money and I'm selfishly looking for somebody where I will get value for money. Now, this is something that is not a constant. The expectation of yesterday may have changed today because somebody has heard of another restaurant somewhere. So when it's coming to you saying, but the other restaurant, they gave me cold water. Here you just give food. The person who was happy yesterday, today is not happy. But that's the private sector. So that's the first requirement for you to get into the game of private sector. Number two, this massless game also says the solution that you've given, that I loved, that I paid for yesterday, if I'm to come again, you must continue to improve it so that you are slightly better than another person giving a similar solution that I'm willing to buy. In other words, the solution must compete, and compete in terms of price, quality, service. And this competition, unfortunately, is not amongst equals. You are going to meet people who have got the best resources, cheapest, the best human resources, excellent, the best technology, state of the art, people who are most connected, people with the best contacts, and that is the arena of the private sector. And I bring this because as we take the young people in Africa into business, tell these people who have taken you to the deeper part of the ocean, where there are no grandmothers, where there are no people who are saying, let us make competition to be amongst equals. Never. Private sector is simply saying, did you fulfill my expectations? If you did, I'm coming again. But beware, should somebody else again turn up and give the same expectations, but slightly better, either in terms of timing, in terms of care, in terms of cleanliness. If somebody does better, I shift without telling you that I'm shifting tomorrow. Now, with COVID, those two things that I've just mentioned, which are extremely tough to fulfill, no wonder it's very hard to get anybody in business and keep them long term. The expectation is the entry point. Meeting and beating the competition is what keeps you there. Those two, even under good circumstances, with everything going well, are difficult enough to cope with. Now, here's the complication. COVID has come in. Now, what do you do then? The first thing, you go back to the two things. I told you the entry point is expectation. Go back and look at the client that you thought you knew the expectations. Check again, are those expectations still the same? If they are still saying, I need to buy fish, this time, He is more choosy because he now values his limited resources much more. He's saying, if I'm going to give you my fish, I want fish which is clean. I want fish which is fresh. I want fish which is properly handled. I am more demanding, more choosy, and it is because there are many more people who are looking for my shilling. There are few people who are now willing to buy the fish. I am among those. And because I'm among those, I'm going to raise my expectation. The expectation you thought yesterday, I just walk in and I park and I walk away, it won't happen because there are many more people also saying, we also want to give you fish. Now, you could also find that expectation has actually shifted. It has changed. Ask yourself, what happened? Somebody lost a job. Somebody is in a job where the salary has been cut by 50%. How do you adapt? The expectation is being put to the second lane. In other words, somebody is saying, I used to get fish every Monday and every Thursday. Now he says, I will only take the fish midweek, only on Wednesday. And that is enough for my family. How do you adapt? The priority is changing. Somebody is saying, I've got rent to meet. I've got children to treat and take to a clinic. Because the COVID situation has brought all these kind of challenges, somebody is asking for bigger mileage for his coin. So look at the expectation again. Check why the customer is beginning to become more nitpicky. Check why they are not coming as regular as they used to do. And when you do that, you begin to adjust accordingly. The second thing I talked about, if somebody is to go into private sector and succeed, which COVID has made even tougher, is the competition. You would be lucky to find that the competition has remained the same as before COVID came in. But chances are high that whoever survived the competition, the COVID, and is now in the market, and is supplying something similar to what you are doing, they have been given a rapid education by COVID to learn many things that make them become more resilient, more persistent, more independent, more committed. Are you ready for a tougher opponent? It was tough before COVID came in. The COVID has distilled those who can now walk into the next space. They are more tough. Are you willing to be in that game? But you'd also be surprised that if you thought that the competition was the original people you used to know, new entrants have come. And some of them are in your space without being there physically. People are supplying your market online using technology without being within your territory. Were you prepared for this? What motivated them? How are you going to cope with this kind of a situation? That is the reality during and after COVID. And I want to say, what then should you do? The situation, therefore, has to have what I call a different mindset. And this different mindset is what I'm going to quickly summarize on. Number one, invest in yourself. What do I mean by this? Learn from existing and new clients. Your old clients have changed. Go and learn them. And learn what you think you knew about them. Learn something new about them and have a conversation with them. Share a cup of tea with some of them and begin to wear their shoes. If you see a new client, what are they telling you? Maybe there's something they're telling you that there's an opportunity for you to do what you are doing right here in our other neighborhood because the person who used to be there has exited. Come and take advantage. Yes, each time they buy from you, the new ones, the existing ones, check their needs, check what's driving them to you. Avoid the luxury of giving yourself rewards during COVID and post-COVID times. A customer is in pain. Whatever benefits, whatever growth that you are seeing, use those benefits to reward customers and attain deeper loyalty. Use those profits to open more branches in areas where people are struggling to keep their customers. This is not a time to start showing off and telling people that, you know what, my branch is doing very well. I'm going to show you that I'm doing even better than before. Please moderate. Maximize every resource. What do I mean by this? Resources can be physical, machinery, premises, human resources, and then the intangible, the time. But also there's another resource you need to maximize a lot. That's the resource of information. Information will be coming telling you that there is somebody about to enter your territory. What are you going to do? Information will be coming to say that somebody somewhere is collapsing and the space is being left. What are you going to use that information for? Maximize it. A client should never pay for your inefficiencies or your carelessness. In other words, as you maximize the mileage of every resource that you have, pass that benefit to the customer through a better price, through better services. It could even include home deliveries so that you begin to become the darling and the focus of all the clients. Investing in yourself also means that you must go beyond the familiar, innovate to cut costs. Go for some online solutions, work from home, take your staff to be more than just family. They need to begin to become really, really part of the business. The other thing that you need to do is invest in the networks, because in a situation like this, you are not going to be having all the solutions, all the resources to meet the competition the way you want to meet. So you need to invest in your suppliers, assist them also to succeed, learn from them. Your suppliers are supplying your competitors, learn from them. Your suppliers are seeing people who have collapsed, learn from them. Invest in the sector experts, people that you used to take for granted. This is the time to listen to somebody who says, I am an expert in your field of endeavor, and then try to hear out and see what is it that they can give you, so that as you try to improve the delivery of solutions but cut the costs, you do not do that unprofessionally, but also learn from your peers, people who are doing what you are doing, because every day they are right there as an open book. Why are people buying from your competition? Why did your customer for 5, 7, 8 years shift to your peer and left you where you are? And then on loans, because some of us are going to be saying, which bank can I go to and I borrow so that I can use to recover? My advice is, as much as possible, avoid taking on a loan that comes with interest, 15%, 20%, whatever the interest. It is a cost, because already the customers are demanding that you could reduce your price, but you are now operating with another cost associated with a loan. And should you take a loan, let it be at the best possible interest rate that you can go by. A loan has got another element about it, which is it disrupts your focus and your ability to be attentive to serve your customer. Each reminder from the bank is a wake-up call to you to tell you that, please, we are getting irritated, we are getting agitated. When can you get your account regular? And that will disrupt your ability to innovate, to serve your client with a sober mind. Energize your human resources. I already said that, because at the end of the day, you want a human resource that you used to deliver 40% to be delivering now 110%. If you had a situation where you're bloated with HR for the sake of just being an employer, this is the time to revisit that philosophy. Let the profits come out. If they are relatives you have been packing into that enterprise, please make the profits and give them resources. Let them start a game on their own. This is the time to have only the best and the finest that you can afford in terms of human resource. People who are saying we're into this together. It's no longer just about the laws of this country, entitled me to have a contract, entitled me to have my salary, entitled me to be paid. It is about somebody saying, this is our business, and we know where the money is coming from, and we feel the pain that the owner of the enterprise is feeling. Finally, I want to say, because in circumstances like this, every political leadership is saying something, and they are trying to portray the image that they want to solve problems. And I want to say this: limit reliance on public promises. They have promised you there will be resources for the hotels, there will be resources for tourism, there will be resources for agro businesses, there will be resources for this. They might be able to deliver some, but may I tell you a message? Those are public resources, and one, the route to getting them is going to be tight. 2, they take a lot of time. 3, they are unpredictable. And then 4, they can actually let you switch off your engagement, your brain, and begin to think somebody out there owes you a living. If those so-called public solutions come, embrace them. If they don't, here is my message. In situations like this, independence and ability to walk the journey on your own is key. Self-belief, knowing very well that if others are going to survive this thing and deliver solutions, even me, I'm going to do this. Persistence, fully aware that if it is tough to others, it is tough to me, it must also be tough to others. And then, of course, you need to embrace the mindset of a learning person. Keep learning, and have a lot of courage. Those are my comments, and I want to leave it there for my submission. And I want to thank once again Ruforum for giving us opportunity to share these kind of ideas, because these are tough times. But the tough times still result in us knowing that no matter what you do in the private sector, there are two things. Deliver a solution that meets the expectations of the customer, no matter your age, no matter your identity. Number two, be ready to compete with people who are bigger and better than you. And if you can do those two, believe me, you're into the game. And COVID is simply saying there is no room for anybody who cannot fulfill both to be in the private sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Charles, for your interjections and those very wise words of advice. As you have said, the businesses to survive must meet the expectations and must remain competitive, and they must learn to adapt at the same time. Our dear participants and the audience, you've heard from Charles. Charles is going to leave us for another engagement fairly soon, but I believe he will have a few moments to answer your questions. If you have very burning questions, please post them on the Q&A platform. And when Charles has not run away, he's going to probably try and respond to a few of them.
Put the questions.
Charles, I want to thank you very much for your time and for sharing your experiences and your viewpoints on this very important topic. I hope even as you run away, you might have a few moments to answer any burning questions from our audience.
I'll be happy to receive any questions if they are there. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Charles. Allow me then to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Adnan Suleimani from Morocco. He's the director of Impulse at the university there. He's going to speak to us on some of these issues as well. Mr. Suleimani, allow me to give you the floor to share your views with our distinguished audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Maurice. I would like to start by thanking Forum for their invitation. I am honored to be part of this webinar and panel on the topic of entrepreneurship in a pandemic situation. I'm also glad to be able to share with you some thoughts on the topic of technology-driven innovation and the role of incubators and accelerators as a catalyst of entrepreneurship. As we all know, the advancements of technology generate a wide range of emotions in the general public. Some view it as a great evil that is diminishing our humanity, while others see it as an opportunity and a way to bring people together and help solve some of the great challenges that are facing our planet. And COVID-19 is one of these challenges. It has taken the lives of several 100,000 people and brought the economic activity to a halt in several parts of the world. And science and technology hold the key to the eradication of this pandemic. Governments around the world have also a role to play in solving big problems such as COVID-19. They set public policy and are uniquely positioned to provide the resources to make sure such solutions reach everyone who needs them. They also fund basic research, which is a crucial component of the innovation that improves life for everyone. Incubators and accelerators have also a role to play in research, valorization and technology transfer. They help spread the entrepreneurial spirit within the society and contribute to the emergence of innovative startups in all types of fields. Technology-driven incubators and accelerators help entrepreneurs, researchers, and doctoral students working on innovations that are likely to push the technological frontier and create new knowledge. Such incubators and acceleration programs are designed to help entrepreneurs overcome the various challenges they face in the development of their innovative products, such as the high capital intensity or the lengthy time to market of their projects. The advantages offered to entrepreneurs admitted into such programs include access to mentorship, access to business and technical expertise, access to laboratories, as well as funding, fundraising, and market access support. As we all know, startups and small and medium enterprises play a key role in a number of economies, but the COVID-19 pandemic is reducing their creation and challenging their survival. Business registrations have been dropping significantly during the recent months, and this is likely to have a significant impact on economic outcomes, especially employment. So policymakers should tackle those short-term challenges by providing access to short-term liquidity to startups. They should also continue implementing policies that reduce the barriers to entrepreneurship and provide incentives for startups. Such policies will help speed up the recovery and preserve employment in the long run. This pandemic has been brutal. We have lost businesses, lost revenues, lost jobs, and of course we've lost lives. Yet we cannot ignore some of the good coming from it. COVID-19 is sparking technology-driven innovation all over the globe. Scientists, professors, physicians, and entrepreneurs are coming together to combine their resources and collaborate on solutions to COVID-19. Face coverings that provide much better protection than the normal masks or real-time health assessments using machine learning and AI are just examples of the innovations that are currently developed by scientists and entrepreneurs to help address the COVID-19 pandemic. The coronavirus is also forcing a number of companies, both large and small, to pivot, reinvent themselves, and to think like startups. This pandemic has also accelerated the digital transformation of several sectors. The education sector is one of them. Previous digitalization strategies were typically focusing on increasing the productivity of a given company, and this pandemic is demonstrating that maintaining productivity is equally important. And this constitutes significant opportunity for startups developing digital solutions in all types of fields. There are opportunities for startups that introduce or upscale innovations that can be useful in the short run. These opportunities include innovations in telemedicine, remote personal care, medical equipment, home delivery, food processing, teleworking, online education, or contact tracing. This pandemic may induce persistent changes in societies, consumer habits, or needs that could uncover valuable business opportunities for startups that are able to anticipate these changes. So, for instance, demand for remote working, e-commerce, education, health services may also change in the medium run. Global value chains and cities may also be transformed. So the entrepreneurship and innovation platform of our university, Mohammed VI Polytechnic University and OCP Group, are playing a significant role in the support of startups that are developing solutions for this pandemic. As an example, we are supporting through the Impulse Acceleration Program a startup called Moldiag. Moldiag is developing and producing cost-effective diagnostic tests for the detection and the quantification of several markers for human, animal, and plant diseases. And Moldiag has been the first Moroccan company to develop and produce COVID-19 diagnostic kits. The startup has now production capacity that can go up to 1 million diagnostic kits per month. The university has also managed to develop in less than 7 weeks Nafas, the first Moroccan ventilator, thanks to a group of 70 researchers, engineers, and doctors. Another example is OCP Tech, an entrepreneurial initiative within OCP Group, the company supporting the university. This initiative designs and manufactures industrial machinery. It has also won the first place in the hackathon organized by the French business school HEC, Hacking COVID-19 Africa, thanks to its product, All-Take-Care ventilator that could be used by patients whose lung functions have been severely impaired due to an injury or an illness such as COVID-19. The university is also incubating within its Youth Founder Startup Support Program, DocHome, which is an interactive telemedicine platform dedicated to the identification and the monitoring of critical or suspected cases of COVID-19. DocHome has recently been selected among the 100 finalists of the Africa versus Virus competition. Our university is also part of a number of initiatives that are dedicated to finding solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic. One of them is the recent hackathon organized by the French business school HEC, Hacking COVID-19 Africa. This African hackathon brought together 400 participants from more than 40 countries, around 106 projects. And the university is incubating one of the teams that have won this hackathon. This team is developing a UV-based disinfection device that could be very useful in the fight against this disease. Once again, this pandemic has been brutal to a number of startups. Policymakers should take the necessary steps to support existing startups and the creation of new firms. Incubators and accelerators have also a role to play in supporting existing startups and catalyzing new ventures. This pandemic is also another reminder of the importance of the investment in science and technology. Our continent needs to invest in education and in research and development. This investment, the investment in education and research, especially research, should not only be justified by its direct economic rewards, it's also a mark of culture and civilization that is as noble as art. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Suleimani, for your very good insights in terms of the accelerated programs at the university, the role of incubation and innovation and technology-driven solutions to our businesses. That is highly welcome. I think that some of the points you've raised are really pertinent in terms of what policymakers need to do. Now, to our distinguished audience, again, please feel free to send in those questions directed to Suleimani to be able to respond to your questions through the Q&A box. Suleimani, you've saved a few minutes of your speech. And before I call into the next presenter, just to let the participants know that you are going to be checking the Q&A section just to be answering as we go, as we listen to the next speaker as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had on the technology-driven and technology-related issues around entrepreneurship in this kind of situation. Now, as we go on, allow me then to introduce and call on Professor Patience Michenga from Egerton University in Kenya to share with us some of our views related to this topic. Prof, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bolo. I would wish to thank the Forum Executive Secretary, Professor Adipala Ekwamo, the Deputy Executive Secretary, Professor Florence, and the Secretariat at large. I would wish also to thank the panelists and also the participants. Thank you for this chance of participating in this webinar number 8. My submission this afternoon will be on how universities respond to the COVID-19 through entrepreneurship training and incubation. I want to begin my submission with 3 facts. The first fact is that more than 70% of startups have had to terminate full-time employee contracts since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The second fact is that many entrepreneurial businesses have pivoted to meet new demands for goods or services born out of this crisis. And the third fact is the way entrepreneurial business models and approaches are affected by the pandemic will have an impact on how entrepreneurship is perceived as a job choice in the future. Now, getting into the universities. Universities have to rise up to this challenge to enhance entrepreneurship training and incubation during this pandemic and even post the pandemic. How can they be able to do this? Looking at the university mandate, it is threefold. And here, I'm talking about teaching, research, and extension. And therefore, universities have to fulfill this mandate to enhance entrepreneurship, even during this unprecedented time of the COVID-19 pandemic. This can be through the following ways. It can be through research and innovation. Universities have been on the forefront in researching and developing new products to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic in such areas as ventilators, sanitizers, PPEs, robots, testing kits, face masks, name all these. So we find that for this pandemic, it has been an opportunity for universities, for them to be able to research and come up with these new products. There have also been innovations in university processes. And here, when I talk about university processes, I mean that when the pandemic came into being, most of the universities, if not all of them, were closed down and students were sent home. And therefore, universities have had to reinvent their processes, such that at such a time as this, we have had some universities holding even virtual graduation ceremonies. For example, for Egerton University, we were able to hold our virtual graduation ceremony on 31st of last month, and we are very proud to have done this. And currently, we are having online orientations for students. That is the first year students who are reporting for this current academic year. The other thing that universities are doing is offering online training entrepreneurship. Universities have invested on online training to enhance students' entrepreneurship, and this is through various online training platforms. The universities have also assisted on development of entrepreneurship training programs. For example, in Egerton, we have a training platform called Blended Agribusiness Powered Entrepreneurship, that is BAPE training platform. This was developed by student entrepreneurs, and it has been offering online trainings on business plan development, business prototyping, marketing, human resource management, financial management, etc. during this time of COVID. Now, looking at the university's online training on entrepreneurship, this training should be able to focus on several aspects. one of the aspects that you should be able to focus on is the product. And here, what I am trying to say is that as these trainings are being conducted, then the entrepreneurs should repurpose and redirect their existing knowledge, skills, people, and networks to the new needs that have emerged due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the entrepreneurs have to focus their products to address the situation that is facing people at hand. And here, we are looking at the various products that are required during this pandemic. For example, there is need for more nutritious food. And also, people are staying at home, and therefore, there is need for people to get the products that they would wish to have when they are staying at home, and therefore, telecommunication gadgets become handy. Online training also, for example, if the children are at home and they have to continue with their classes, then online training becomes very, very important. When looking at products also, branding of the products comes in handy. And when we're talking about branding of products, it's not only about the traditional branding here, but we are also saying that these products have to be branded with the COVID-19 messages, that people have to take care and also they have to keep safe and take care of each other. Another aspect that the training will have to look at is pricing. Mr. Osisi talked about people not having money, which is true. During this pandemic, we find that most people do not have enough money because some people have even lost their jobs. And therefore, when entrepreneurs develop products and they're selling these products, then the issue of pricing becomes important. And these products have to offer value for money. And now looking at the universities, as they develop training programs, even at such a time as this, then they should develop training programs that are pocket friendly to the customers. Another issue about pricing is on the modes of payment. And here now, we are being told that dealing with the currency that we have been dealing with traditionally may be a source of transmitting COVID. Now, we have mobile payments, which are important, and online payments. Therefore, as entrepreneurs, the issue about having pay bill and till numbers becomes very, very important. Another issue is about the place. And here we are saying that the traditional places are disappearing because people fear even going to the market for groceries. And therefore, home deliveries have become very, very important. And right now, we are having new models of the place. For example, in Kenya, we are having a lot of car boot selling and home deliveries. Another issue in training, online training, is on promotion. And here we are saying that the universities and the student enterprises have to be creative when it comes to coming up with promotional strategies. Universities have to continue promoting their activities even in the wake of the pandemic. Promotional messages need to emphasize the need for individuals' responsibility to stop the spread of COVID-19 virus. For example, wearing a mask and sticking to social distancing. Also, it is important for promotional messages to promote positivity. That is, the current situation is there, yes, but of course, this situation will change with time. And of course, we've been told that we'll have to learn to live with it. It is important also when it comes to promotion that the universities and also the enterprises have web pages at this time. It is mandatory, in fact, for them to have web pages, which are updated regularly. And these web pages speak to the customers who are there. The other issue is on physical evidence. And on physical evidence, here, there is the issue about having safe products. So as entrepreneurs produce products, these products should be safe for the consumers, even at this time of the pandemic. And also, the training should emphasize on the processes within the enterprises. And here, we are looking at digitization of the processes, which is very, very handy at such a time as this. Now, another way that universities has been promoting entrepreneurship in the wake of the pandemic is through online mentorship. The universities have been linking up student entrepreneurs with mentors, and these mentors are supposed to provide support to the entrepreneurs. Some of these mentors are the university staff who have the technical expertise, and the other mentors, of course, come from the industry. And therefore, the issue about university industry linkages becomes very, very important at such a time as this. Universities have also enhanced entrepreneurship by providing grants to student that the student entrepreneurs can continue running their enterprises at such a time as this, and also develop products that respond to the needs of the customers during this time of the pandemic. And therefore, on the issue of grants, then it is important that the universities link up with financial institutions such that these grants can also be facilitated through the financial institutional support. Another way that universities have been promoting entrepreneurship is through linking up the staff and student entrepreneurs with the national and the county governments. And this is in order to support these businesses through the services that are offered by the government at this time of the pandemic. And in as much as the government is not able to support all the businesses, but then the government also has been requesting for entrepreneurs who can be able to offer services to their various levels of government. For example, the county governments have been requesting for support for those who can be able to provide PPEs, sanitizers, and also provision of face masks. Another assistance that universities have been able to support the student entrepreneurs is through provision of facilities, and the student entrepreneurs have been able to use the university laboratories so that they can be able to prototype the products that they are developing. And the last assistance that the university has been providing is through the linkage with patenting organization so that they can be able to patent the products that they develop, and also the regulatory bodies such as the Kenya Bureau of Standards. Moving on, I would wish to make a submission on how entrepreneurs can be able to survive during this pandemic. And the first way that the entrepreneurs can be able to survive is to go for products that sell during the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, we know such products as sanitizers. They are really making they are really making a kill in the market. Another way is to cut down on costs, and this has already been said by some of the panelists. And another way is also to negotiate with the creditors. I know that some of the entrepreneurs had received credit before the pandemic, but now that money is scarce, then it is important to revisit this issue, and they can be able to renegotiate on the repayment of the loans that they had taken. Another way is to reinvent the services and operations such that they can be able to meet the needs of the customers, and look also at new distribution channels, for example, online marketing. It is also important for the entrepreneurs to stay in touch with their customers and also not lose the sight of other risks, because now we know that we are in the pandemic and most entrepreneurs are focusing on the pandemic, but there are other risks that may also affect the business. So it is important that the entrepreneurs also look at these other risks. Okay, now I will talk about how universities can be able to promote entrepreneurship post-COVID-19. This can be in several ways, but I'll just look at a few of them. One is to invest more in entrepreneurship and in innovation. And the other way is through embracing ICT. And the third way is to provide more support to researchers as student entrepreneurs. And the last way that I will wish to talk about is for the universities to be able to reinvent their services and their operations. In finishing up my submission, I would wish to say that the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that universities and businesses have to be innovative, they have to be entrepreneurial, and they also have to embrace change if they are to continue surviving and if they are to compete. Thank you, moderator. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your submissions, which are very well taken. You've emphasized the role of the universities and mentioned the three missions of the universities, including teaching, research, and extension, what has been christened as the third mission of the universities. You've also touched very well on issues of university industry linkages and the ways in which the university could reinvent itself in this post-COVID-19 situation. I'm sure your audience will share some of their thoughts and send in some questions if they have for clarification or any additional information as may be required. I want to encourage our distinguished audience, kindly send in your questions, please, so that the panelists can look at them, respond as we speak, or organize themselves to respond to you during the upcoming session on question and answer session. In the interest of time, kindly allow me to introduce our discussant for the day, Mr. Tunde Adeyemi from Nigeria, to react to the submissions that have been made by the three panelists so far. Allow me also to inform you that we may not be having two of our panelists that were scheduled to be with us. For some reasons, they are not able to join us for this session. But if you have questions or issues that relate to what they were able to respond to, we will try and see if the current panelists are able to respond, or other members of the audience as the case may be. So feel free to send in any questions to the QA and any comments to the chat options. Mr. Tunde Adeyemi from Nigeria, the floor is yours, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'll be talking about coping with the COVID-19 pandemic and the needed action to support young entrepreneurs and how to respond to COVID-19 and other crises. Post-COVID-19, Nigeria has over 40 million unskilled youths. And despite education being a basic human right, over 30 million Nigerian children are out of school. a number projected to become 20 million or more during a COVID-19 era. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused the largest disruption of education in history. And the same goes with business too. It has have a negative impact on learners and teachers around the world, from elementary to secondary schools, technical and vocational education and training, as well as universities and adult learning and skill provider establishments. Presently, over 77% of Nigerian students have no access to education, just as 1.58 billion children and youths from pre-primary school to higher education in 200 countries have had their education disrupted. Anyways, the impact of COVID-19 on Nigerian student education and learning has created a learning crisis, and there has been little access to education, but especially marginalized population. And over 91% of the teachers became dormant since they lack digital skills, and then the list goes on. But this is the impact of COVID-19 on Nigerian education in numbers. There has been increase in gender-based violence. 1 in 3 young women are attacked. And this is simply because of the rising cases of poverty and joblessness among the youth. Also, most of the schools in Nigeria, most of them don't have e-learning facilities. School lack ICT. Over 60% of the schools in Nigeria lack ICT, and more than 35% of them don't have the teachers to actually, provide the skills. And more than 92% of young people in Nigeria don't have access to education as we speak. So, and we actually create a response and intervention program, and we're also providing our own recommendation. The first is to create COVID-19 opportunities for young people. And then the second is to come up with technology-driven innovation and the role of incubators and accelerators as catalyzers of opportunity. Also, Africa's private sector response to COVID-19, we'll briefly look at that, and how we're going to actually, finance SMEs and startup in the post-COVID-19 future. It is very important to create opportunities for young people. During the pandemic, there has been a surge in digital opportunities in Nigeria, same as all over Africa. Education, business, and government activities have transitioned from analog to digital. Most organizations in Nigeria, they are now online. Everybody is no more offline. And there has been greater demand for digital skills. But sadly in Nigeria, only 1 out of 70 Nigerian youths possess the know-how or the essential e-skills, according to the NOI polls, are prompting the need to create empowerment programs that can actually provide new skills to young people. And then before the pandemic, only 9.6% of organizations and businesses in Nigeria are online. But during the pandemic, the number jumped to 30%. And then we believe that post the pandemic, after the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 70% of businesses and organizations will actually, go online. And this will actually require, it will create the need for digital skills. And we need to actually, create a lot of incubations and accelerator programs, as well as entrepreneurship programs. Organizations like Reform has to, they have to actually come up with programs like this to provide all these essential skills to young people. And also, there's a need to create digital and environmental skills, because during the COVID-19 pandemic, people generated a lot more waste. Right now in Nigeria, we have greater waste because now we have what we call PPEs, personal protective equipment, face mask, we have face shields, we have canisters that we're actually holding hand sanitizers, and a lot of other waste materials, which include food waste as well. And we have to look at these areas too. It's not just digital skills. We have to include environmental skills. How do we manage this waste? Because in Lagos and Nigeria alone, from March 2020 till July 2020, the state alone, one state in Nigeria, has used more than 10 million face masks. And then there's more demand for face masks, hand gloves, PPEs to protect people so we can actually mitigate the spread of the virus. So we have to create skills that can actually empower young people. And it has to be both digital and environmental. Booker's International School is providing some sort of programs. One of it is, we call it a DESI. DESI means Digital and Environment Program to empower young people. We are training young girls on how to actually, get CSS skills, HTML, and all these programming and coding skills, and how they can use UI and UX designs. Similarly, we're also training young people on how to actually, convert farm waste to biogas. We're training young people how to build plastic biodigesters. And the digester can actually be used to convert farm or food or human and animal waste to biogas. The biogas can be used to generate cooking gas and electricity. Also, the byproduct of the biodigester is compost. The compost can be used as fertilizer. It is bio-friendly and it can be used on farms. So we believe that these are skills that are essential now to give to young people, and it can be monetized. It can really, really help young people. And then we are going to look at technology-driven innovations and the role of incubators and accelerators as catalyzers of opportunity. Despite many hardships, the COVID-19 pandemic has created a quantum leap away for humanity, and then especially Africans, to embrace technology and to become far more innovative. The COVID-19 actually made us think more. We actually wore our thinking caps, especially organizations. People are thinking more. People are coming up with solutions. Like, how can we be more digital? How can we address the environmental challenges? So participation in tech incubators and accelerators has created more skills. And we believe organizations like Reform and their partners can create more accelerators and incubator program, and they can engage more young people. And then Africa's private sector response to COVID-19 lessons for future pandemic. The Corporate Council of Africa reported that Africa's private sector donated more money to battle the COVID-19 pandemic than some African governments. In Nigeria, for example, the UBA, which is owned by Tony Elumelu, the CEO of TEF and the president of TEF, they donated roughly $30 million to provide beds for isolation centers. In countries like Kenya, the country has sought out ways to adopt digital payment methods amidst the pandemic. Safaricom implemented a fee waiver on East African mobile money products such as M-Pesa in order to actually encourage limited use of physical cash so people can become much more digital. And private sector should also provide support for human capacity organizations like Reform and Booker's International School and other organizations to deliver innovative solutions that can mitigate the impact of COVID-19. Also, we want to look at financing SMEs and startups in a post-COVID-19 future. I will be rounding up here. Small businesses have suffered a great deal from the impact of COVID-19. Most of them are actually struggling. So there's a need to create a kind of new systems come 2021 or post-COVID-19. There's a need to transform our traditional lending system to fit into the reality of today's SMEs. Most SMEs don't have collaterals. In Nigeria, for example, very few SMEs can have access to loans simply because they don't have collaterals. Any loan that is beyond $50,000 are really approved. They give you very little money, and they give you very, very little amount of time for you to actually return this money, and you pay a lot of interest. So the system is very exploitative. It's making the banks richer, and it is killing SMEs. So many young Nigerians today, most of them post-COVID-19, their determination is to leave the country because they believe Africa can't even feed itself, can't help itself. So, and we also need a better way to get capital to SMEs. We have to empower more fintechs to lend SMEs more money to assist young farmers and young entrepreneurs. And then we also have to embrace total digitization. Africa has to be fully digitized. Our government, our policy, everything has to embrace full digitization. And lastly, we need a thorough evaluation. We have to look at most of the developed countries were able to actually assist their business. Countries like the United States, of America were able to give soft loans to business with interest as low as 1%. In my country, the interest rate is still 25%, 30% above. How will a business pay that kind of interest? So we need to look at this. There's a need for a realistic and well-formed map for the road ahead. So I believe with this submission, we can actually, we can help SMEs and we can actually tackle the challenges ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tunde, for your submissions, which are very well taken. We really appreciate what the Bookers International is doing to respond to the COVID-19 situation, as well as the points you've touched on the other topical areas that have been dealt with by our panelists. Now, we are going to move rather straight so that we have some time into the dedicated Q&A session. Our distinguished audience, thank you very much. I can see a number of questions coming up already on the Q&A chat box. And I can see our panelists are also responding to those questions as well. But within the next 20 or so minutes, we are going to dedicate to questions and answers from the panelists. And so if the audience do have some questions, please type them in. We are going to respond to them. You also have the option of raising your hand, and then we may pick a few of you to ask their questions live. So if you have something that you think is very burning that you want to talk about or contribute, kindly raise your hand, and we are going to pick a few of you to give live questions or comments on the show. In the meantime, please, I'm opening the floor for questions and answers. Our dear panelists, there are questions that have been directed to you directly. There are questions that have been asked that are more of a general nature. Feel free to respond to any of those questions if you think they are more aligned to your area of expertise or your area of contribution during this important webinar session. We do have the panelists, and I can see that I think we have Chelsea's left, but we have Florence, and we do have Suleimani still on the show. So Suleimani, I wonder if there are questions you want to pick from the chat section to respond to directly.
Sure. Hi, Mr. Bolo. So there was a question about like the ideas that get stolen by incubators or accelerators. So the advice to the person that has asked this question is that you shouldn't let such fears paralyze you and prevent you from acting. Good ideas are everywhere. The most difficult part is the execution on such ideas. Also, I think it's also advisable to speak to a lawyer and to get your documents in order. You should also pay careful attention to the selection of the employees and the potential partners, because ideas get stolen from these as well sometimes, unfortunately. And also you should invest your time and energy in ideas that are difficult to copy. But overall, my advice is that you shouldn't let such fears paralyze you or prevent you from acting, because the difficult part is really the execution, not the idea itself.
Thank you very much, Suleimani. And just to follow up on, I think there is an important issue there about intellectual property rights protection. And a lot of times our young people and innovators have lost these rights to either the private sector or when they disclose these ideas at the point of incubation or acceleration. I think it is important to check issues of non-disclosure agreements, for example. And I think it is important to sensitize our young innovators and entrepreneurs about, one, for example, in your case, institutional IP policies. One would love to know as people come into your accelerator programs, how do they protect themselves? Or how does the product organize to protect themselves and protect the ideas? Because across the continent, we've had cases where young people have gone to either investors or gone to conferences and exposed their ideas, and then they ended up losing those ideas to some other businessmen as well. I think this question speaks very much to how do we protect our intellectual property rights. All right, Suleiman, do you want to add something to that, or should I?
No, I think that's covers all the points that I wanted to say about this question. Thank you, Mr. Bulo.
Okay, thank you very much. Prof, do you want to respond to any of those questions, or do you want to type them out so far?
Okay, I had responded to some on the QA, but I would wish to take up a question on the students who've come up with innovative ideas, and they were to take them up to the community before the pandemic, and the pandemic came. So how could they be able to do this? And I think my response to this was that this can be done in two ways. The time when all the whole country had been locked down, then this was only done through virtual meetings with the students, the lecturers, and the community members. But now that there is first the reopening, then the lecturers and the students can organize for physical meetings so long as they meet the Ministry of Health guidelines, and these meetings should be for only about 15 people, not more than 15. So that is how they can be able to go about it. Another question was about financing for small businesses and for startups, which is difficult most of the times. Someone had asked about the difficulties of accessing finance from banks. And here, one can be able to think about angel investors who are interested in innovative ideas, because we know that banks most of the times will require collateral, whereby many startups may not be having that collateral. Thank you, Dr. Morris.
Thank you very much, Prof. But allow me to also follow up with you and on issues of the kind of new skills that we would require to respond to future pandemics. We hope they don't come, but they might come and they will come. In terms of the university curriculum and organizing ourselves to respond to future pandemics, what have we learned from COVID-19 and how are universities positioning themselves to respond?
What we have learned from this pandemic is that universities have to be quick in responding to some of the issues that come into play in the environment. And here, when I talk about them being quick of research, and therefore, if we have policies and guidelines within the universities that are in line with the research activities, then what we can be able to see is that, is it possible for these policies and the regulations for them to be able to be quick in responding to this? For example, if it is to have maybe materials and equipment for researchers to be able to innovate and come up with a product as quickly as possible, and we have maybe the procurement procedures that may take maybe a month before this researcher can be able to get funds, is it possible for some of these policies to be relaxed such that in such pandemics, then the universities can be able to respond quickly, for monies to be able to be released early enough, and for the researchers to be able to continue to conduct their researches and come up with solutions as quickly as possible. So it is a matter of relooking at the policies and procedures within the universities. Then another issue is about networking within the universities. It is important for universities to work together when it comes to responding to some of the issues, for example, the pandemic issues. Universities can come up together, they collaborate, and they work together to come up with solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And to our distinguished audience, wherever you may be, we would like to hear your experiences with especially university procurement procedures and systems, because a lot of times we want to respond to some of these pandemics and develop new products quickly, but our own internal procedures and systems become a bottleneck. Wherever you are in the continent, it would be nice if you could share your experiences. Are there ways in which universities where you work or your institutions have taken advantage of the situation to relax some of the bottlenecks that we have in terms of policies? Kindly share your thoughts in the chat options if you've had those kind of experiences. And to our two panelists who are still with us here, I think, let me just follow up again on issues of technology, on issues of incubation and innovation hubs, essentially the innovation and entrepreneurship infrastructure within our universities and research institutions. One is that we see this coming up in most of our universities now. I mean, most universities now have either incubation centers or innovation hubs running within the universities. And for example, what Suleimani is doing in Morocco, for example. There are issues that relate to, one, the availability of the equipment, as you mentioned, Prof, and the infrastructure itself. There are issues about access and whether our young people are able to access those places. There are issues of moving the products out of that rather comfort zone of the accelerators and the incubators into the rather rough external environment of the business and market infrastructure. I would like just your comments about how do we support the transition of the young innovators in the universities into the actual market environment? And are they able to access some of this innovation infrastructure we have within our universities? Who would like to go first? Suleimani.
I'll go first. Thank you, Mr. Bolo. So indeed, this is something that we are currently working on at Mohammed VI Polytechnic Universities, how to valorize research in the deep tech area and how to encourage students to develop products and services in the shallow tech area. And so the first thing is to encourage students and researchers to adopt the entrepreneurial mindset. So this mindset will push them to be more autonomous, more dynamic, more open-minded, more proactive, more tenacious. It also pushes them to identify needs and problems and to try to assemble the resources to meet those needs or to solve those problems, to create value for themselves and also for the society in general. And the second step is to have entrepreneurial education that gives them the basics of business administration, the basics of customer development, and also to have incubation and acceleration programs. And this is what we do. So we provide mentorship to those aspiring entrepreneurs. The mentors that we have are there to advise the entrepreneurs on strategic issues that may impact their ventures. So issues such as the go-to-market strategies, the hiring or the fundraising. We also have funds that could be made available to those students and researchers. And this is a question that has been asked by a member of the audience, is how do we finance all those initiatives that I have talked about during my intervention? So we have a fund within the university called UM6P Ventures that finances those initiatives. Those initiatives are also financed through external sources. Some of them have won competitions, like for example, Moldiag have won a competition, I think around $150,000, and now is raising funds externally because they cannot rely permanently on the resources of the research institution that is incubating them. The second one, the one that has developed the first Moroccan ventilator, it was mainly the work of the 70 researchers and engineers and medical doctors that are belonging to the university's ecosystem. And others have been financed by the resources of the entrepreneurs themselves. So this is fundraising. And also we have market opportunities. So we work with the entrepreneurs to link them to market opportunities through the ecosystem of the university. So for example, we have one startup that is incubated within our U Founders incubation program, and we have managed to link them with a potential client in Senegal and Mali. So this is how we do incubation and acceleration. This is how we work with entrepreneurs to help them navigate the market and develop their projects.
Okay, thank you very much. We have seen 2 hands being raised. I'm going to come to you very shortly, but Prof, do you want to give a rejoinder to that?
Yes, I can add to what Suleiman has said. And here I'm going to give an example of Sokoine University. And what they have done is that they have been able to win out the student enterprises through a cooperative that the students have formed. So all the students who have been participating in the incubation hub, once they are winned out, they get into the cooperative. And in this cooperative, then they are able to be linked to financial institutions whereby they can be able to get financing. And also through the cooperative itself, they can be able to access funds through that cooperative itself. And they also can be able to market jointly. So we can be able to do that as universities.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Mr. Rikum Zelalem, we can see your hand was up. Do you want to ask your question now? Zelalem, we can't hear you, but do you want to ask your question now?
You hear me?
Hello?
You hear me?
A little louder, please. We can hear you in the background. Please just speak a little louder, closer to the microphone.
Okay. Thank you, doctor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're a bit faint. I'm not sure if the rest can hear you. Just a little louder, closer to the microphone again. Okay, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, the moderator. Just my question is for the Professor Michigan. Just sorry to the name correctly.
Yes.
At the university, it is difficult to continue, especially for the practical learnings and internship cases. So how to conduct such issues, especially for practical, because in the theories maybe we covered by recording videos or other materials giving the manuals and other related materials. But the issue is how to handle at the university for the practical learnings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Michenga. That was to you. But I mean, both Tunde and Suleimani, feel free to jump in if you need to. We also had Aaron Tonui raise his hand. Aaron, if you're on, could you ask your question, please? Aaron Tonui. Okay, we shall let him on when he comes on. In the meantime, Prof, do you want to respond to that question?
I did not get it right, Dr. Morris. If maybe you can elaborate on that question.
Oh, no.
Okay, fine. Just in a short while, I think we have Aaron online. Aaron, could you ask your question, please?
No, I'm okay, sir. I'm okay. Just an error.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. To the audience, if you want to ask your question live, you could just easily raise your hand and we shall pick you. I think the question from Zelalem is about the practicalities of things like internship as opposed to the theory aspect of it, and how do you operationalize that. If that is not clear, I can bring him on board again to repeat his question. Maybe it's better that we can get, yeah.
Let me respond to it, and if it is not clear, then he can as well come back to me. When it comes to internship, there are several ways in which the universities can be able to have internship for students who are within the university. Of course, the students do the theory when they are in class, but after some time, then the students are supposed to be attached to organizations so that they can be able to do their practicals within those organizations. And specifically for Egerton University, what we usually do is that the students go for internship after their third year in the university. So they are placed with different organizations for more than 2 months, but not less than 2 months. But then these students are also free during their long holidays to seek for internship in any organization, such that they do not just stay at home. And something else to add is that these students are not only attached to organizations. We also have what we call farm attachment, whereby students are attached to farms. And here, the farmers who live in counties that are close to the universities, they are usually requested by the university if they can be able to stay with a student or more than one student for a period of 2 months or more than 2 months, so that this student can be able to work on the farm together with the farmer. And in so doing, these students are able to practically grow crops or keep animals, and they are able to practice on a farm. Apart from that, of course, we have the practicals within the university, and these students usually undertake their practicals within the university farms. And we have what we are calling livestock duties, whereby they go to the university farms and they do livestock duties. So we have a lot of opportunities for practicals and internships within the university setting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can see 2 more hands up, but Mr. Adeyemi, there is a question for you from Professor Stella in Nigeria as well. Asking, Professor Stella Williams is asking about how do the SMEs get the opportunity to get access to the financial assistance that you have listed? Could you respond to that as I call on shortly the next 2 live questions?
Okay. I'm actually proposing that the government and universities as well, they have to meet and they have to create a policy that protects SMEs. I even believe that the whole of Africa, that we can have a kind of united SMEs forum where we mandated that in the whole of Africa, all the banks, they must charge nothing less than a single digit interest rate when they're actually providing loans for any business that has to do with tech or farming. So we can actually, we can work together with the government. We can tell them that we want this policy made. We want this laws implemented. We want to ensure that anything that has to do with research, anything that has to do with maybe agriculture, anything that has to do with tech, we give them loan that can be long-term, maybe 2 to 3 years or even longer, because we realize that in the developed world, they have a lot of venture capitalists. Unlike here in Africa, we have very limited amount of venture capitalists that are actually, supporting young entrepreneurs and young technocrats. So we need this policy in place that can really, create a lot of change. So that is what I'm actually proposing. That post COVID-19, we have to do a lot of, real deep thinking. We have to look at how the pandemic has actually affected us negatively, and then the opportunities we can actually, gain from it. And this includes, coming up with a good new financial policies, fiscal policies that can really, really help businesses. Young entrepreneurs and agricultural businesses should pay less loans. They should pay less interest rates, and they should pay less taxes. So we want the government to actually, look into this and to create support for SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have 2 hands up. I will give this first opportunity to Maria Batude. Could you ask your question, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes.
please.
Okay, I'm Maria Mbatude from Deja University in Uganda. I'm not asking a question, but I'm giving my experience during the COVID.
Good.
Yes, in Deja University, we've been trying to carry out trainings of entrepreneurship to students, and we've trained students in groups as recommended by the Ministry of Health. And as a result, we've come up with some products that are on the market. Also, the remaining bit of the training of the products has been completed at the Uganda Industry Research Institute, where our students could not now access to the university, but it was a little bit cheaper for them to go to the Industrial Research Institute and be able to process the products. However, I'm also being an opportunist in that for us, we looked at it as an opportunity to continue mentoring the students into the entrepreneurship trainings and skills as compared to others who laid back. So in the process, the projects of entrepreneurship have gone on, and we are glad that we've gained some more time into the projects that Reforum has initiated in the incubation hubs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. The next participant I will call on is Mr. Daniel Hussein. Daniel, are you still on?
Hello?
Yes, Daniel, go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying I had a question to Charles Osisi, the first presenter.
Yes.
Yeah, and he has already answered me through question and answer chat.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that. To our participants, our panelists, our hosts, we are coming to the end of this. But before we close, I would like to give this last opportunity to our three panelists for a quick 1 minute final word, parting shots, if any, and then we are going to hand off this back to the RUFORUM Secretariat for any final remarks. Let me start with you, Mr. Tunde Adeyemi. If you have any final thoughts, any final remarks in under 1 minute, please.
I just believe that educational organizations, schools, universities, we have a lot of responsibilities and we have a lot of role to play. The pandemic actually affected us greatly. It shut down the entire educational system in Africa. So this is the time for us to go digital, the time for us to venture into new frontiers and try new things. Schools should create collaboration with businesses. There's nothing wrong if universities are the owners of some of the most successful businesses in Africa. There's nothing wrong if schools are actually producing young entrepreneurs that they are actually funding to become the next billionaires in Africa. So we need to create a kind of, we need to look at things again, and we have to come up with new approaches to address the African challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Suleimani.
Thank you, Mr. Bolo. So I'd like to briefly conclude by thanking RUFORUM on their invitation. This crisis is a reminder of the importance of the investment in education and research and development. R&D is a crucial component of innovation, and our continent needs also to invest in that and invest in the development of its entrepreneurial ecosystems. As we all know, there are a number of measures to evaluate the health of entrepreneurship and innovation in a given country. So these measures include the Global Entrepreneurship Index developed by the Global Entrepreneurship Development Institute, or the Global Innovation Index developed among others by Cornell University and INSEAD. And on both those measures, African countries occupy low ranks, and I think this is not satisfactory. This needs to change. So it's time to work on the development of our entrepreneurial ecosystems. It's also time to reform our education system and to start developing the entrepreneurial mindset in our students and graduates and researchers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suleimani. Prof, wind it up.
Thank you, Dr. Morris. I will wish to say that this pandemic has presented an opportunity to the university system. It is important that universities invest in research and innovation. And it is also important for universities to support student entrepreneurs, because it is only through this that these students will be able to start their businesses for self-employment and also for the employment of others. And also, it will be important that our governments also look into the funding of universities in such areas as research and innovation, so that we can be able to have researchers coming up with products that may be able to respond to such pandemics in the future. There is also the need for networking of the various institutions, not only the universities, but also with the industry and also the government sector, so that we can come up with solutions when there is need for coming up with solutions quickly. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof. To our distinguished panelists, the hosts, and our dear audience, from me, it is a great thank you very much for your engagement, for your listenership, for your participation in this particular 8th webinar of RUFORUM on the important topic of entrepreneurship in a pandemic situation, taking opportunities and realigning for the future. I must say we have had a good time from where I sit. It is now my honor and pleasure to pass back the baton to the host. And I can see both David and Francis are on, but I think Florence is also on. Martin, over to you for the final and last word.
Thank you very much, our moderator, for this. It has been quite engaging, and we want to thank the panelists from wherever you are. I know it is quite engaging, but thank you for all those insights you have given us. These webinars are a learning platform for all of us. So in your sharing, we pick ideas for the different member universities, and as we proceed, I want to invite all participants here for the next webinar, which is taking place on the 31st of August. And it is with the title, Delivering Agricultural Advisory Services in the Post-COVID Era. Because we know that we have lockdowns and social distancing, how best can this be done? Please do join us on Monday, 31st August this year to participate in yet another webinar. We are going to synthesize this and share it with the relevant actors. Please, you can also look at this. It is recorded, and we are going to share the links to the YouTube videos about the webinar. Thank you very much, Dr. Bolo, for the excellent moderation.
Thank you.
I want to talk about technology and innovation opportunities. Don't forget about this statement: disrupt or perish. Innovation is any invented technology that functions in a more efficient manner. Now that's where your secret is. Your opportunity is in disrupting the current technology. When change comes, it never asks for your permission. It does not ask for your permission. It doesn't say, I am here, take note of me. It just comes. What are the amazing ideas in agriculture that have not been done yet, or are being done and I can disrupt a bit, add a bit of value?
What I've learned today is that I should be a walking CV and express my capabilities wherever I go.
The art of creative disruption.
Today I've learned on the importance of teamwork, and I appreciate the fact that you cannot make it alone in life. That to have a business mind, you need people and a good network.
What I've learned today is that you don't judge today by what you harvest, but by what you plant.
I should make my days thematic days.
I should not postpone any business opportunity or chance.
Customer requires some business which saves them time and resources.